Groundhog Day is a movie about everyday life and routine. The question that Phil Connors addresses is related to absolutely every one of us.
What would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same and nothing that you did mattered?
That sums it up for me.
We all have experienced the feeling of being stuck in one moment of life. It seems like every day repeats itself. We hear the alarm clock, we wake up, we ride to work, talk to the same people, do the same things over and over again. Then we come home tired, frustrated. At home we also do the same routine things that we did yesterday. Same things that we will do tomorrow. Fall asleep and the next day start them all over again. When we first encounter Phil, he's standing in front of a blue screen and hosting the Weather Channel. This scene hints to us that his whole life is fake. He doesn't have any feelings, he just exists. He is just interested in himself and things that can make his life better. No one and nothing else interests him. The same context is applied to the groundhog, who also has the same name, Phil. Everybody loves the groundhog. Everybody cares and everybody wants to help the groundhog. The same with Phil. Everyone extends hands to Phil, but he is too concerned about himself to notice or even think about others. On the very first day, before the days start to repeat themselves, Phil already acts like everything is repeating, and he is already bored with the whole day.
It's the same old shtick every year. The guy comes out with a big stick and raps on the door. They pull the little rat out, they talk to him, the rat talks back, and then they tell us what's going to happen.
From this, we can assume that even before the repeating days started, he probably had the life where his every day looked the same. Every day he woke up, goes to work, works, and then runs home. There is nothing happening in his life. The Groundhog Day movie is a critique of everyday life and routine. Why do we do what we do when all our actions have no logical meaning and have no conclusions? And the main question is there an escape from this endless cycle? The short answer is yes. On the example of Groundhog Day, we can see all the stages of how people accept the routine, and in actual way how to escape the routine. From this movie, we can clearly see what every one of us must do to change our lives, to do what we love and to energize people who surround us. Based on the movie, the secret is love to the people who surround us. Phil is the ideal character for this movie because he seems like a person who will never change. He's an egotist, a self-lover. He is not satisfied with what he has, even though a lot of people are dreaming of what he has. Phil thinks about himself more than what he actually is.
For your information, Hairdo, there is a major network interested in me.
He refuses to sleep in the cheap hotel of his colleague. He thinks about himself as a world-famous celebrity, and the interview with the groundhog is the most humiliating thing that he can get. I don't think he jokes when he calls himself a god.
I'm sorry? What was that again?
I'm a god.
You're God.
And this is not what Phil thought about himself when he realized that he can't die. He thought about himself as a god from the very beginning of the movie.
Don't you listen to the weather? We got a major storm here. I make the weather.
And that is his main problem, because he is much, much less significant than what he thinks. Phil is a groundhog who is not affecting anything and doesn't have any significance. He is just like a cute little animal who predicts the weather with the variable luck. Pay attention on how Rita describes the ritual with the groundhog, who gets out from his hole. He gets out, looks around, wrinkles his nose, and it completely reflects Phil's actions. Based on the ritual, the winter will continue if the groundhog sees his shadow. And the same rule applies to Phil. The repeating day will be over only if he sees his shadow. In other words, the repeating day will end only if he loses his ego.
Look up for your shadow there, pal.
And one time, he even came very close to the solution.
There is no way that this winter is ever going to end as long as this groundhog keeps seeing his shadow.
But making changes is a hard process, especially for Phil, because Phil is a reflection of each of us, a reflection of our laziness and refusal to change our life around. Circumstances lock him in the place where nothing changes, but not metaphorically, but rather literally. Moreover, he gets stuck in a small town where not much changes at all. In such towns, life moves slow. the embodiment of boredom and routine. The circumstances also make Phil immortal. As the saying goes, I would rather die than change. This perfectly applies to Phil because people with the same ego as Phil, for them, one life is not enough to change. And as a result, Phil must go through all the steps of accepting gray reality, the same steps each of us will face if we try to get out from a routine. First, we are trying to figure out what we did wrong and where we made a wrong turn. Then we decide that the best way to get out from a routine is to have an enormous blast. But as the example of Phil shows us, that fun and entertainment becomes the same routine as everything else. Then we try to fight, and if we can't find an answer, we become depressed. Some people get drunk, others start having dark thoughts. Any attempt that Phil made to break the repeating cycle ends up in a failure. And at this moment, he starts realizing that there is more to life than concentrating on himself. He had lived 1,000 days where nothing was changing because he was doing the same actions over and over again. Phil spent years to realize that, however, we don't have those extra years. Like the movie shows us, even if we had unlimited days, we would at first get bored, then we would get depressed. If we concentrate our whole lives on ourselves, we won't become happy. One time, he spent his perfect day with Rita. He was close to an answer.
It's a perfect day. You couldn't have planned a day like this.
Well, you can. It just takes an awful lot of work.
Every day could be a perfect day if you tried. At this moment, Phil realized what he needed for happiness. The next day, the song doesn't irritate him anymore because the words of that song, I Got You, Babe, has a meaning for Phil now. Phil really fell in love with Rita. He stops controlling and taking everything. He starts to give back. He greets people with a smile, reads books, sculpts ice. If, in the beginning of the movie, he lives like tomorrow will never come, at the end of the movie, he does the absolute opposite. He lives like tomorrow will come, even though he is sure that tomorrow will not come. He catches a boy every day who falls from a tree. He saves Lester from choking, changes tires for old ladies, and even insures his life knowing that he can't get hurt. Everyone lives the same life, but Phil wants to make so that everyone experiences the best day of their life. At that moment, his repeating cycle ends. The last day where he lives the repeating day is the day where Phil lives for others. He completely gives himself to others, losing his ego. Phil's winter ends when he stops seeing his shadow. At the end of the movie, he is not getting out from a Groundhog Day, but rather from a repeating routine. Because he got rid of the barrier that doesn't allow him to live differently, because the barrier was just in his head. The moral is, you will be living the same routine day if you are taking the same actions. Even if you have great resources, you can't change people around you. But what you can really do is change your attitude towards others. All our changes start in our heads, and the goal of our changes must be to love other people. This love for others is what will make you living happy on your routine days.